Chapter 8. A Family Reunion. The Mouse and the Motorcycle. The next thing Ralph knew, his mother was shaking him by the shoulders. "Wake up," she said. "Ralph, wake up. Room service has brought us another meal." Room service? Ralph rubbed his eyes, not believing what he had heard. Room service has brought our dinner? Yeah, real feast. A whole blueberry muffin and a chocolate chip cookie. And Ralph said, Ralph's mother, "Get up. We're having a family reunion." It all came back to Ralph. "Oh, room service," he said, understanding at last. "You mean the boy, Keith." "He is room service to me," said Ralph's mother happily and carefree. Ralph sat up. Already his aunts and uncles and many squeaky cousins were arriving through the secret paths and space between the wall. It was a long time since anyone had enough food for a family reunion, and there was rejoicing in the mouse nest for everyone but Ralph. He was thinking about the motorcycle he had lost, and he had promised, and he had broken it. He had a dull, heavy feeling in the pit of his stomach, and he did not feel like celebrating. "Why, there's Ralph," squeaked his Aunt Sissy, who thought she was better than the rest of the family because she lived in the bridal suite, where she led her relatives to believe riches of rice fell to the carpet when brides took off their hats and the groom shook out his coat. The rest of the family knew Aunt Sissy was not as grand as she had pretended to be, because very few brides and grooms came to this hotel anymore. "My, how you've grown," she said. Ralph never knew what to say when people told him he had grown. Well, if it isn't Ralph," his Uncle Lester said, who had nested inside the walls of the housekeeper's office, where the maids dropped donut crumbs every morning at 10 o'clock when they had their coffee. "What's this I hear about you riding up and down the halls on a motorcycle?" Uncle Lester had a way of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. "My land, a motorcycle," said old Aunt Dorothy. "Isn't that pretty dangerous?" "Wouldn't mind riding one myself if I were a few years younger," said Uncle Lester. All the little cousins came crowding round. "Show us your motorcycle," they squeaked. "We want to ride it. Come on, give us a ride on your motorcycle. Huh, Ralph? Come on, please." Ralph knew he was expected to be polite to all his relatives, even the squeaky little cousins. "Well," embarrassed and ashamed, he looked down at the floor. "I sort of lost the motorcycle in a pile of sheets and pillowcases." "Lost the motorcycle? Oh, Ralph!" cried his mother, genuinely alarmed. Ralph knew what she was thinking. This meant the end of room service. Did she have to go back to pilfering for crumbs for his brothers and sisters? "That's a young mouse for you," said his uncle. "Lester can't take care of anything. If anybody asks me, I think it's a good thing he lost it," said Aunt Dorothy. "Riding a motorcycle? That's just plain foolish." All the little cousins looked disappointed and sulky. "I don't think he ever even had a motorcycle," said one of them. "Yeah, I bet he just made it up." Ralph felt terrible. The family reunion swirled around him. The muffin and the cookie were divided amongst everyone. Cousins fought over the blueberries. Uncles, usually overweight uncles, asked for second helpings. Everyone talked all at once. The cousins finished their dinner and went racing around the mouse nest. The aunts and uncles raised their voices to be heard above the racket of the children. Suddenly, there came from the knothole a noise that drowned out the squeaks and the squeals. "Shh!" Not a mouse moved. They looked at each other, too terrified to speak. "Psst! Hey, Ralph, come on out," whispered Keith at the entrance. Ralph's mother gave him a shove, but no one spoke. With heavy feet, Ralph walked to the knothole, but he did not go out of room 215. "What do you want?" he asked. "You and your family better be quiet in there. My mother will hear you. You know how she is about mice," Keith said. "I don't know why people keep saying that quiet mice are quiet. You sound like a bunch of noisy ones to me." Behind Ralph, his relatives began to tiptoe quietly away to their own homes, leaving his mother to do all the cleanup. "Did you have a nice picnic?" Ralph asked, dreading what the boy might say. "Yeah, we saw an old mining town with a real jail and bars on the window and everything." Keith reached into his pocket and pulled out something curved and hard and white, with a rubber band fastened to it with a piece of scotch tape. "I brought you a present. Come on out." Puzzled and curious, Ralph squeezed through the knothole. "What is it?" Whatever the object was, it never seemed like anything he had seen. "It's a half a ping pong ball I found down in the games room." "See, I padded the insides and I anchored it with a rubber band and some scotch tape. Yeah, well, what's that for? Ralph didn't really understand. It's a crash helmet. Keith set half the ping pong on Ralph's head and slipped the rubber band carefully around his whiskers until it rested under his chin. There. It fits just right. You need it big so that there will be plenty of room for your ears. When you ride the motorcycle, you need a crash helmet. Ralph peered at Keith from underneath his new crash helmet, which rested lightly on his head. He knew he looked every inch a motorcycle racer, but in his whole life he had never been so ashamed. He longed to crawl off in his hole and never face Keith again. But his conscience, which until now he did not know he had, would not let him. There was nothing to do but stand there with his fine new crash helmet and confess. You might as well know, he told Keith. I lost the motorcycle. Lost the motorcycle? Keith, who had been kneeling, sat back up on his knees. But how? I rode it by mistake into a pillowcase, and it got dumped into a laundry hamper. You rode it into a pillowcase? You weren't supposed to ride it. Remember? You promised. I know. I didn't mean to ride it. Yeah, but you did. Keith's voice was accusing. Well, you see, the maid was vacuuming under the bed, and I... Ralph began, and then he stopped. What's the use? I wrote it. I lost it. It's probably gone to the laundry by now. I'm really sorry. The boy and the mouse were silent. Both were thinking about the little motorcycle with its clean lines and pair of shining chrome exhaust pipes. That motorcycle was my very favorite of all my cars. I saved my allowance to buy it. Ralph hung his head in the crash helmet. There was nothing more he could say. It was terrible, what he had done. I guess I should have known you weren't old enough to be trusted with my motorcycle, said Keith. The boy could not have said anything that would have hurt Ralph more. The end.